Cool. Hey, Ward, are you there? Okay, welcome. So, cool. And you rather have your camera off?
No, it just wouldn't let me turn it on earlier. I was waiting for you.
Okay. Cool. You should have all the permissions. Great. Thank you for coming. It's good to see you. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Anaili. I will introduce the panelists very quickly in a moment. I'll just give you a brief context on what we are doing today here. So this is chapter session 85 on the Mixed Nuts Reading Club. It's like a project that in a way came into existence with the purpose of one, connecting with people and sharing what the translators are doing. And this is a way to somehow make accessible some of the content that Geshe Michael and the rest of the Mixed Nuts translators are, the content they are working with. And number two, it's a good way to fundraise for them to keep going and keep doing it. So here we are, and what we are doing is like every week we choose a reading, a topic, we share a reading with everybody, and then we invite some panelists, we discuss, we talk about it. We share our ideas or questions about the topic, and we try to learn and share what we can about it. So this is, again, as I say, chapter 85. And what we're doing here is like we are going through a series on the Bodhisattva Charyavatara written by Master Shantideva. And I kind of joking was saying like, don't tell ACI people, but I'm taking the readings from ACI course 10. But of course, the readings are like the original sources are the material that the Mixed Nuts work with. And actually it's very exciting because Geshe Michael last translation term, he just announced that he himself is gonna write commentary on this very same text, the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. So it's gonna be very exciting. If you come to the next translation term, you're gonna also get to know more and more about this text. We're gonna go together through it. So here we are on the part like Master Shantideva is teaching us and sharing with us how to develop bodhicitta. He first tells us what it is, then he tells us what are the benefits of getting bodhicitta, but then he say, but wait guys, if you want bodhicitta, there is many steps you have to take. The very first one, it seems to me that it's you really have to want it. It's gonna be very hard to get it if you don't want it. I don't know even if it will be possible to get it if you don't want it. Who knows? I don't know. That's gonna be a first question from the panelists. What do you guys think? Do you think you can get bodhicitta even if you don't want to get it? What do you think, Ward? I see you smiling. You have a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's possible actually.
How will that be? Isn't it the case that the first kind of bodhicitta you get is the wish to get bodhicitta?
Usually, I mean, I feel like the texts are they're a map, they're not the terrain, Like,
all right, I like that.
Yeah, so I think it's possible. Like, Yajni Maitra in Crown of Knives. He just when the crown is coming on his head,
Mm-hmm.
he just thinks to himself, well, he starts having intelligent regret, right? And then he spontaneously gets bodhicitta, right? He doesn't like think about it and want it for a long time or something.
I guess, but he makes a prayer, right? Like, I wish I can take all the suffering from everybody. And what will be that? Personal responsibility? He jumps straight from personal responsibility and then bodhicitta.
Well, that's the cause and effect method, right? That's
Yeah.
6 and 7. So, but I don't know. You can argue about it, but it seems like, did he really want bodhicitta, or did he just want the knives to stop? I don't know.
That's cool. That's cool. What do you guys think? What do you think, Anaili? What do you think about wanting bodhicitta? It's like, even it's interesting, right? Like bodhicitta is wanting enlightenment in order to benefit everybody. But then there is a previous step where you develop wanting the wanting or something like that. What do you think about that step? Like, how much do we actually want? Like, wake up in the mornings and like, I want to want something. I want to get enlightened. And what's your take on that?
In my experience, I think it's very difficult. For me, it's very challenging to want to have bodhicitta. Because for me, first I need to study it deeply in order to really understand what it is, because it's a very complex concept and a very high spiritual objective. I am more on the analytical part and less drawn to the emotional feelings part. And that's why for me, bodhicitta is challenging. And the way that I am tricking myself to want it more and more is to use logic to understand why I should be wanting it and why it is good for me and for the people around me. So that's the trick that I'm using. And I must confess, I'm not thinking about it every day, especially when I wake up.
But you know what? It's cool that in a way, I think Master Shantideva is anticipating that. I think, I don't know if this happened to everybody or to many people. I mean, it has happened to me for sure, same as you say. But the way that he starts is like a very good car salesman, as Geshe Michael sometimes says. Like, because he presents, okay, what is bodhicitta? And he kind of describes what it is. And then he starts like, and I'm going to tell you why it's going to be good for you. And he starts describing like, it's going to be amazing. You're going to be able to do this and to feel this other thing and the people around you. So he's doing a very good sales speech. What do you think about it, Brian, about wanting a wanting?
For me, I don't know. To be honest, wanting a wanting is something, it's a complex idea because whether you want something or not, you know, of course, the maybe what you are referring to when you say wanting the wanting is acknowledging that you have a need. So then you develop the wanting of the solution for that need. But like previously thinking, oh, I want to want that thing. I mean, I understand it, like you can drive your mind logically to that point. But as Anna mentioned, truly wanting to want something, I don't know, it's a complex idea for me. It's like, how do you get to that point? If you want to want something, then you already want something. You know what I mean? So you need to want the first one to have the second one. So it's like the egg and the chicken. How do you start all of that process? And I think that the beginning of that cycle, which it's not really a cycle, it's more like a chain, would be to understand that you have a need for something. And then you get to the point in which that need becomes so high or so urgent that you start
Painful.
wanting. Yeah, so painful, correct. Yeah.
Yeah, the idea that I thought when you want to want something is like somebody, I don't know, you get to your parents' house, let's say, all of a sudden, and then you see they are having like a beautiful dinner, amazing dinner, your favorite dinner, but you already ate. and you're like, I'm not hungry, but I wish I was. I don't know. It's just an example. But I really like what you say. I really like what you say in the sense of developing an understanding for the need of it, like making a reality check and realizing, yeah, it's not only that we want it, it's almost that we need it. I like that. And bodhicitta also, the other day we were talking with Ben Kramer, and we were trying to understand bodhicitta not only as a wanting or as a wish for something beautiful, but also as an energy, something that happens inside of you, and as in a yoga point of view, like what happens to your body and to your channels and to your energy when you have bodhicitta, when you don't have bodhicitta. And that's also a very interesting perspective. So that's the way. Imagine, guys, this was only the introduction. That's Master Shantideva take us first, like, what is bodhicitta, why you should get it, and now he's like, okay, now that you want it, what are we supposed to do to get it? And first thing he says is like, okay, first, if you want to go to the party, go and take a good shower, brush your teeth, clean yourself, basically. And he goes very deep into the whole process of purifying. He says one of the first steps in order to get ourselves ready to get bodhicitta is to purify ourselves. It's not the only preliminary. There are others, like making offerings. We also last session we talked about it, how you, as a preliminary, you make offerings, especially to the three jewels, meaning in a way an absence. How do you offer to an absence related to emptiness? He also talks about how we do prostrations, again, to the three jewels mainly. And now he's talking about how to purify. And this is the subject of today. He talks about the 4 powers that many of us may be very familiar with it. But what I really like about this reading is that he goes into so much detail into each one of the powers. So today's subject more specifically is just the very first power, the power of destruction. So I would like maybe to ask you guys, what has been your experience with using this practice, using the practice to purify? Like many times we talk about the 4 steps, and people tell about personal experiences, success stories. I don't know really if personally I have like very clear moments when I was like, yes, I did the purification and this happened and this worked and I feel this, or, but maybe it's just that I'm not very good at it. What's your take? How has this practice been used for you? And maybe you have your own personal like tricks or advices that you can share with us to make it accessible and to work. Do you have anything, Ward?
Yeah. I mean, I have a ton of purification stories. They're not pretty though. Some of them are really nasty. I don't know. It's interesting. I've done the 4 steps a lot, just like, you know, like going through each step. And then I think in general, I don't know, really trying to do the 3 principal paths and trying to hang out with Geshe Michael as much as possible and my other teachers. It's like you're always doing the 4 steps, because the steps aren't, I mean, you can and should do them like in order and purposefully if something comes up, but I mean, all 4 of them are basically just Dharma practice, right? I mean, intelligent regret, as we've are on the verge of discussing, is basically just understanding that you did something that's gonna have a bad result later, and you know, and the rest of the three basically are just practice, right? Not doing it again means just doing other things that are better for you, and doing antidotes are the things that you should have been doing in the first place, kind of. So I don't know. I kind of try to make the 4 steps like a lifestyle, and because of that, I don't know. I've had many purifications, and a lot of those purifications actually just happened on the feeling level. You know, I've had bad stuff happen all of a sudden. Like I had a bike got stolen from me, and I knew it was gonna get stolen, and I was like, okay, I used to take stuff when I was a kid. Bye. And then it got taken like the next week or something. I was like, yeah, I knew it. Stuff like that has happened, like bigger, clear events. You know, and the whole thing they say about in the diamond cutter, like if you practice this, you'll get headaches, you know. I've had tons of kind of mental afflictions, but it's really particular. It's not like I'm just upset or something. It's like things are clearing. So yeah.
That's great. So basically what you're saying is, in a way, dedicating your time, energy, your life basically to your Dharma practice in general, it's already purifying. Either if you do it like over the steps very consciously, or you just dedicate your time to keep going in Dharma.
Yeah, well, yes, definitely. Mm-hmm.
Cool. That's very helpful for me, because sometimes, yeah, it's good to know, like, yeah, you can simplify a lot just by, okay, do what you have to do and the cleaning is going to happen. That's great. What will be your take on this practice, Anaili? Like, have you used it a lot, not enough, or what have you learned from it? What questions do you have? Anything? How has it been for you?
Now it's fun. At the beginning, it wasn't that fun, because in my experience, the success of the 4 powers is having something bad happen to you immediately after. So one example that one very clear example that I remember, at the beginning of my practice about 5 years ago, I was doing 4 powers on my financial life. And one of the things that has happened was that the next day after I did 4 powers, I forgot my wallet at home. And it was a time when I didn't have my card on the phone and stuff like that. Basically, I was cut out from my money for a short period of time. It was a small disaster. And when I realized, I really started to laugh, and I said, okay, fine, I'm going to get work without money. It's okay. It's one of my favorite practices because you can see the results very fast. It's much faster to pull out a weed rather than see the plant grow. It's kind of painful, but in the moment that you see the small disaster and you remember that there isn't anything that is coming from its own side, I experience a sort of joy that, okay, this is the sign. Apparently something has been cleaned. And based on this practice, I have also created a workshop for my seed system friends that I called Karma Detox. And we were doing 4 powers on all the 10 rules of ethics. And I was starting with a disclaimer. The success of this workshop means that tomorrow maybe something bad will happen to you, and you need to remember what you did this evening in the workshop. And I have received many stories, funny stories, yeah, about what has happened after that. So yeah, it's a very useful practice that needs courage from the person who starts doing it. And it's very, so in one of the small retreats that I have done last year, with meditation and all the works, I have understood a little bit better in my mind the fact that the 4 Starbucks steps are not working properly if you don't do 4 powers before. So it's very important whenever you have an objective, first to pull out the weeds and then to plant the seeds and celebrate the good things that you have done for other people. That's my take on the 4 powers.
Cool. I get 2 things from there. Like the question I immediately got is like, what if I do the 4 powers and then no disaster happens? Like, am I doing them wrong? Like, do I 100% have to experience a bad thing? And yeah, it's sometimes it has happened to me, like this thought of maybe I should not purify that because I don't want problems, you know? Like, what if I purify that and then something bad happens and I don't want things happen? But it's just one of those tricks that mind plays. Yeah, I think it just can be one of those signs of misunderstanding on the practice. Now, another thing you were saying, first, let's pull the weeds out, then let's plant. I like that. It's like in nature. In nature, usually you do that. But if you think about it, step number what? The antidote, step number 4? Well, yeah, not necessarily, but it's like an antidote could be in a way a 4-step plan. Could be. Although they say for some reason they really strongly recommend using studying about the emptiness or meditating about the emptiness as an antidote as well, that I find very interesting. What's your experience with this, Brian? Like, how do you live this practice? Have you seen good things happening or bad things, meaning good things happening?
I have also tons of funny stories using the 4 powers. And one of the the stories that I remember the most is in the middle of the night, after a couple of 4 powers sessions, I started to feel physically a lot of cold. And I remember it was summer. So I put on like 2 jackets and then my blankets, and the cold was still there. It was really funny. Then I went down and I prepared myself a cup of hot tea, and the coldness remained. Then I went into the shower and took a shower with almost boiling water, and I still was very cold. And the very next day, when I woke up, I don't even remember how I get to sleep, because after the shower, I still was very cold. And the very next day, I woke up with this very joyful state of mind. And then I at that moment, I didn't like connect, the 4 powers with all this experience. But after a couple of hours into the day, I realized, I've been doing the 4 powers. Maybe this is why I experience all this whole process during the night. And yeah, I mean, I like to think that that was a consequence of the 4 powers. Then the other day, well, not the other day, I mean, a couple of weeks later, after that experience, there's this cartoon called Last Airbender, Avatar. Maybe you know it. It's a really nice cartoon. And there's this bad guy that is chasing after the main character. And in one episode, this guy is like experiencing like a change of thinking, in which he turns, basically he goes from being the bad guy to becoming the good guy. And during the night, this guy experiences this a very similar experience. And I was like, oh, that guy is doing 4 powers, and I never realized it, and he's living exactly the same thing. And then at the very next day, for that guy, he wakes up and he's in a very good mood, and he lives with his uncle, and he's mainly mean with his uncle. But after this experience, he started to be joyful and cheerful, and and I was like, wow, yeah, Prince Zuko, thank you. It's Prince Zuko. And it was really, really funny to see that Zuko had a very experience like that. From that moment, I started to watch that cartoon with particular attention. And that cartoon is full of wisdom, I gotta say. But then after that, another experience that I remember vividly is, I don't know what kind of 4 powers I was doing, but I remember that I was washing my hands after doing the 4 powers, and I had like an iPad right here on the top. For some reason, I lean forward, and then the iPad falls with the edge right here in my head. It hurt so much, and the whole screen of the iPad crashed. And I was like, oh yes, it worked. That particular time I was expecting something to happen, and I was really, really excited that it happened. But as Ward said, most of my experiences with the 4 powers are related to mental affliction more than physical stuff happening. I think that's the reason why I remember these 2 episodes more vividly, because they are the few examples in which something in the, let's say, physical world happened something to me. Most of them are mental afflictions. And what Anna says about doing the 4 powers to clean the wheat, it's so true. I mean, you take all those weeds that how do you say, like drain the energy of the good seeds that you use with your 4 steps, and then the results come super fast. So that's my experience with the 4 powers.
Thank you, Brian. Very inspiring. And I really like the story of the cartoon Avatar. And I'm just gonna throw this. If anybody wants to say something about it, you can. If not, we can just move on. And actually, we should do a little of the reading. But how will you guys connect? Just think about it. How will you guys connect Lungsen Yukpa Chikpa? So thoughts and energy travel together. The energy moving in the inner channels and doing the 4 powers, you start thinking differently, and then you get sick and cold and stuff. I think there has to be a connection there. It's like your body's so used to be messed up that when you start fixing it, it goes. If anybody wants to say something, anytime you're welcome. Otherwise, let's do a little bit of the reading. All right. Wait. Good. And the first few paragraphs are kind of the introduction, so maybe let's just read them without stopping much. Who's next? Are you up for reading a little word?
Sure. In English?
Yeah. Or Tibetan, if you can translate instantaneously.
I don't think that fast, but okay. 4 powers of purification, power 1, destruction, part 1. The 4th section here concerns purifying yourself of bad deeds through using all 4 of the forces together. We begin with a general presentation. You should from the very beginning make efforts to see that you are not sullied by performing any harmful actions. Despite your efforts, however, such an action may occur due to some instance of carelessness, an attack of mental afflictions, or the like. It would be a mistake in such a case to simply ignore the bad deed. You should rather exert yourself in the various methods of repairing the damage. These methods were taught by our compassionate teacher.
Maybe a few more paragraphs.
Okay.
Thank you.
Instances in which you have committed some transgression of your vows, at whichever level of vows you may have, should be repaired according to the methods prescribed for those particular vows. For repairing the damage caused by other kinds of bad deeds, you should utilize the 4 powers, as the Sutra on the 4 Practices states. If, O loving one, some great bodhisattva has succeeded in the 4 practices, then even those bad deeds which have been both committed and collected can be overcome. What are the 4 practices? These are as follows: the activity of destruction, the activity of applying the antidote, the force of restraining from the particular bad deed, and the force of the foundation. The expression committed and collected refers to actions whose karmic results are certain to be experienced. If even these types of karmic results can be overcome by the 4 practices, then there is no need to mention those which are not certain to be experienced.
Thank you, Ward. And actually, I had a question that I shared with you guys. What's this thing about karmas that are committed and collected and certain to be experienced? Like, what I thought is like supposedly every karma, it's certain to be experienced. No, it's not that one of the laws of karma. Do you guys know what does this mean?
Yeah, it's in Seiji's book. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
not Seiji's, excuse me. Sugang's first book. They talk about it a lot.
And what is it? Can you give us a brief general explanation?
1 second.
Okay.
Sorry.
No.
Let me see. Yeah, there's a huge part on karma that's committed and collected, and then the permutations thereof. I believe committed just means doing it. And I believe I'd have to double check. I did see it in the reading you sent out, but I think collected has to do with how we.
Yeah. Wondering if it has something to do with the full karmic path that they call, or if it's one of those things that are certain to ripen in one lifetime. You know, like there are categories. I don't know if it's connected.
I think it is a full karmic path. It's not the one. It's not when. It's if it's a full karmic path or not.
Mm-hmm. So we know it's connected to that. If anybody else has any idea, please share. If not, yeah.
Well, actually, I thought, now I may be wrong, I know, I thought that it was related to actually the time where the seed ripened.
Time?
Yeah, like this lifetime or next lifetime, you know?
That's what I thought as well, but I don't know for sure. But it's good to know that you don't know. Then you start wanting to know.
I remember I read something in this book called All Kinds of Karma.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't remember for sure. I will go dig into it.
Okay. We have homework in the, in the session. Okay. So
I can check right now too.
Cool. Maybe while Anna Ili, are you up for reading a little bit more? And in the meantime, maybe Word can check.
Yes, of course.
Cool. Thank you. I'll share the screen again. All right. Share. Okay. Here.
The first of these 4 forces involves feeling strong regret over having committed some negative action. In order to achieve this level of regret, you must contemplate carefully the way in which negative actions trigger 3 different karmic results. The second force, as described in the compendium of trainings, consists of performing practices such as studying the profound scriptures of the canon, meditating on emptiness, reciting secret words, preparing physical representations of the holy bodies of enlightened beings, making offerings, and reciting the names of high beings. Should I stop or should I continue?
Continue a little bit, because this is just a general explanation of the 4 forces.
Mm-hmm. I was trying to give some time to the translators.
Beautiful. Very considerate. I should as well.
The third force is to restrain yourself perfectly from ever committing these negative actions again in the future. The fourth consists of meditating upon the wish for enlightenment and similar practices. Here is the first force, which is described in great detail. The points to be considered at the time at which the bad deeds may have been committed, the cause, the mode of expression, the undertaking of the deed, its object, and how the deed was committed. Next, we present some detail on each of the 4, the force of the activity of destruction, the force of the foundation, the force of the activity of applying the antidote, and the force of restraining from the particular bad deed.
Great, great. So actually this is just the introduction. The main content is about this. The very first force, many times called intelligent regret. The official name or translation is the power of destruction. But what it basically means is, how do we develop an understanding on why what we did was not very smart, why we should have not done it? And as you can see, even just the very first step, it has so many steps or parts into it. You see, we're gonna think about how or why we have committed, or the cause, meaning why, how we did it, the mode of expression, what happened. So we're gonna go into a lot of details into the very first of the powers. And sometimes going deeper like that can make the practice much more powerful, other than just saying like, well, it was not a good thing. Now you're gonna understand really why it was not a good thing. And that can also create a lot of emotion. And as you know, emotion and understanding are factors who affect the power of our seeds. So that's what we are about to start. Will you read a little bit, Brian, and then we go with some questions?
Sure. Although I just found what we were looking for the collected and committed karma. Do you want me to read some examples?
Cool. Where did you find it?
I found it in All Kinds of Karma book.
Sure, sure.
So I'm gonna give some examples. We have the kinds of karma which are committed but not collected. And that one example of that would be cases where we commit a negative deed but feel ashamed of ourselves afterwards. So that's committed but not collected. An example, right?
Oh yeah.
Then the kind of give me 1 second. Alexa is playing for
So
something.
I think it's similar. It's basically what Ward was saying regards the karmic path, right? Those are elements
Correct.
of the karmic path, are they?
Yeah, correct. That's correct. Related to that.
Mhm.
Then we have the kinds of karma that are collected but not committed. And basically those are you decide that you will undertake and bring to its completion some physical action, but you fail to do it. So in that case, you collect karma, but you do not commit it. And then a kind of karma deed that is actually truly committed and truly collected would be a case in which we commit a negative deed and then feel no regret after that. That's a full karma, like Word said. So those are the three examples of those committed and collected.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. I think that's very useful. So, okay, as we, in general, we know first power, we're gonna go into detail on it, but in general, we know the first power is, in this case, sometimes the presentation change, but the first one is develop a regret. But Geshe Michael is very, he emphasized a lot. What's about? So he's very smart, and he really is like amazing. He emphasized on intelligent regret. It's not guilt. It's not, you know. So what do you guys could share with us, with the audience as well? What will it be a good intelligent regret versus a bad regret? Like, can you see maybe why it's so important to say intelligent regret? And maybe if you can help us to separate, discriminate very well, what is a good regret, what is a bad regret? If anybody wants to just share something about it.
I would just like to talk a little bit about what intelligent means here. I cannot answer to the bad or good intelligent regret. I never thought about it until now. But for me, intelligent regret, because I focus a lot on logic. At one point, after I started to do 4 powers, I understood a little bit better the intelligent part of the intelligent regret. And for me, that's thinking about the laws of seeds. And I saw now in the reading that basically, naturally, I was doing something that is in the reading. I was remembering the fact that small seeds grow into big trees. So if I was angry, very angry at somebody, and I yelled at that person, that's the small seed. And because I am afraid of my own seeds that I'm planting, I realized that maybe 100 persons are going to yell back just as bad, or one person is going to do a much bigger scandal than I have done to this person. And this is how I am applying the intelligent regret. I realize, oh my God, I've done it, it's gonna grow, and I don't want it to happen to me because seeds grow. That's one thing when I'm doing 4 powers just after I've planted the small seed. And another thing that happens to me, started to happen to me recently, is when I experience the big tree. And fortunately for me, I have the tendency to easily remember that is coming from me. And I succeed at restraining myself. I'm still angry inside, but I cannot, I cannot react in a bad way because I am afraid of my future if I do it. And when I restrict myself, I'm thinking, okay, what is the small seeds from the past that might have created this big tree right now that is screaming in front of me? And I am doing 4 powers on those small seeds from the past because I always find something that is similar and smaller. And I'm taking a commitment really not to do it in the future because it feels very, very bad. I am very hurt when those seeds are ripening. And that's the real regret because I've been stupid and bad in the past. But I'm talking about myself, not about other people.
No, thank you, thank you. So what I find is one of the elements you are definitely adding there in order to make it intelligent is the fact of understanding how reality works. And I really like that. I think it's very important. It's not that we just feel bad because of intuition, that sometimes it happens. Sometimes we feel bad when we hurt somebody else, you know, or when we know we did something. And even before, let's say, studying Dharma, sometimes we have that, like, maybe I should have not done that. But maybe we don't really understand why or anything. Like, it's just like an emotional, instinctual thing, I guess. Maybe it's part of being human. I don't know. But I like that you add this element. Okay, one element is understanding how reality works. Anything else you guys would like to add? Like, if somebody comes to you and, oh man, you know, I feel so bad, like I did this, like, how can you tell if they are having a good regret, let's call it intelligent regret, or not a good kind of regret? What do you guys will advise for people, or make a distinction? Which one is which?
You know, Geshe Michael has this example of the poison, right? When you realize that you drink the poison. And I think it's a good example, although for me at the beginning, it was hard to relate to that example because I have never ate poison before. So, but one thing that I would like, that I do like to think of is when you were a child, I remember that I was playing with my grandfather on the streets, and I throw a ball, and then I broke a window, the glass of a window. Man, I was so scared. I was like, oh no, my grandmother is a person with a strong character. So I was like, oh no, I'm so screwed. And I remember that feeling. I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel like, oh, I'm such a bad kid. And how did I do that? What I was fearing, what I was afraid of, it was what was coming, the yelling and you know, the scolding and all those things. And and I think for me that is a great example of what is a good regret and what is a bad regret. I like feeling guilty, right? At that moment, I didn't have the time to think of, oh no, such a bad kid, and how could I do that on the poor window or my poor grandmother. No. That all of that was based on what's coming is worse. So you should have not played with the ball that way. So when I tried to do the intelligent regret, I tried to drive my mind to that feeling of, you know, what is coming is worse because of what you just do. And of course it's hidden, but it's there, imbued the logic that Anna just described, understanding that it's coming because that's how the world works. So that's a way I use to identify it.
Cool, Brian. So one thing that I take from what you say is, I like the fact that you didn't identify yourself as a bad person. I mean, you were scared of what was coming. I can imagine your grandma going into wrathful mode. You know, like, so yeah. But I find interesting that you say, I didn't thought of myself lesser. You didn't thought I'm a bad person, I'm a bad kid, I'm a blah 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 blah. It's interesting. It's interesting to me, but you were concerned more about, oh, what's gonna happen then? What's your take on it, Ward? How to differentiate between good regret and useless regret?
Well, I mean, you guys are talking about a little bit in the chat, but one of the reasons Geshe-la translated it like that was to make the distinction between guilt and what we're talking about, this first power. And yeah, like intelligent regret is like an informed kind of guilt, like in the sense that like I shouldn't have done that
Mhm.
because it was stupid. So it's intelligent to think that way. Yeah, and that's basically it. And like what Brian was saying just earlier about his story about the window and stuff. So yeah, intelligent regret, I don't think it's part of the Tibetan. Like I don't think intelligent is in the word, but it's the notion itself is intelligent. So therefore Geshe-la translated that way, as opposed to a type of guilt which is paralyzing and not helpful. Which, you know, we come from different countries and stuff, but as far as a lot of the religious backgrounds that came into United States and other parts of North America, a, a lot of those religions do have a strong tradition of guilt, which is paralyzing and useless. You know, guilt itself doesn't have to be useless. Like you should feel bad about bad stuff you did. Otherwise you'd be a like sociopath or something like that. But not a type of guilt like Bertha just put in the chat, like that paralyzes you. Yeah, that's not helpful. It's just, it's more, I shouldn't have done that. It's gonna hurt me and others. Let me do something different that's not, you know, so therefore intelligent.
Cool. So what I'm putting together after hearing you all, how do you say in English? Not both, but you troth, you three, and also the commentaries in the chat. It seems to me that intelligent regret has to do with an understanding that makes you take action, that makes you move and do something. If it's paralyzing you, it's not good at all. If it's just getting you depressed, oh, and then as the story with Brian, if you identify with it, oh, I'm a bad person, and then you feel bad and you're paralyzed and your energy goes very low, and you identify a lot with what I have done and I don't deserve or whatever. That's bad guilt because it's paralyzing you, and because if you understand how reality works, that's not fixing anything. Actually, what we will need is to take action. Yes, intelligent regret. I know what's coming. I know how reality works. So then I must do something. And what should we do? The rest of the steps. So we are done with the session. I can't believe it. Well, I guess I talk a lot, but we are just about to start to see all the elements. We're gonna keep going with this subject, but we are just beginning to see every single element that we should go through in our minds to really develop this intelligent regret. At least we talk about what it is. It's very important. So maybe lastly, to close, I would like to ask you guys, you know, in one of the steps to purify, it's also acknowledging, in a way we can say, is the confession part. Because okay, I understand I did something wrong, but I guess what I would like to ask you to close is, sometimes we're encouraged to confess to other people, and sometimes also we hear that there are techniques of confessing to your teacher in your mind, in your heart, or like angels, Buddhas, enlightened beings, bodhisattvas in our minds, in our privacy. But what will be your take on these two different ways? Do you think one is better than the other, or when will you advise one or the other? Maybe just word a few general ideas on this. Have you done both? Does one works better for you, or different circumstances?
So wait, say again the two options between
confessing what the wrongs you have done in your heart, with your teacher in your mind, in your heart, or Buddhas, bodhisattvas, meditation, versus going to your friends, or one or many friends, and telling them, confessing to a person that you can talk with versus confessing to the, let's say, the three Yules.
Right. It invokes, like, if you feel like vulnerable when you do it, that's what matters. Like, if the person you're talking to, or if it's in your heart and they like understand what's happening, and then you have that feeling of like openness and that you're saying something that, and now it's been revealed that you've done it or that you've acted that way in like an authentic way, that's the thing that's necessary. Like if you confess to your dog, which your dog would listen, like you wouldn't have that. But like, you know, if you confess something to your, you know, partner or your llama or something like that, that they understood, like, oh, you have that problem, you've been working on it, this is a big deal for you, coming to me is actually hard, those things. That's kind of how, where the growth happens around it, and you know, where the shame and consideration can kind of be used, like in terms of not wanting to do it again. So yeah, either can work, but it has to have that feeling in my view.
So is it basically the essence of having a real interest in improving, like really not being happy with what you did and have a real interested to do something about it or change yourself?
Yeah, something like that. Like, well, the confession itself is about being open, and that's in Tibetan is shakpa, right? Like open up. So that's the crucial part,
Interesting.
the confession. Otherwise, it's just superficial or not real, as someone put in the chat, I think, Brian.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Ward. And any of you, Anaili, Brian, have any take on it? Have you tried both? Does one have worked better for you than the other, or?
In my experience, so I am very open about my practice with my friends in the community that know about seeds. So I'm doing coffee meditation publicly and also 4 powers publicly. Recently, I have started to do confession in a smaller group of people who have a more advanced practice. And it's and I think, again, from my experience, that the more ashamed you are to put it in writing or in words, if you are speaking with that person, the better it gets cleaned. And also, it didn't happen a lot of times, but I clearly remember one time when in meditation, with the teacher brought in meditation, I had a very vivid experience of regretting with tears, telling them they were not there, yeah, in my mind, yeah, telling them something about something that I did. And I think it's about accepting to yourself that you did a mistake and that was really wrong. Yeah, so yes, vulnerable, but also accepting to yourself, because if you are saying it in meditation to a teacher that is only in front of your mind, or to an actual person that is in front of you, it's still how you confess it. It's still coming from you, obviously. Yeah, so it's about this acknowledging that you have done really a bad stuff and understanding it deeply. That's my take on it. So do both, or everybody should find their own way of doing that, because we are at different levels.
Thank you. The honesty about not being like, it's almost, to me, it sounds like kind of acknowledging or recognizing to yourself and say, I don't want to be that kind of person. I really don't want to be that kind of person who does that and acts like that. And for you, Brian, lastly,
what I try to do is to combine both. I mean, if I understand that the people around me is actually coming from me, and if I understand that thanks to mental seeds, everything is possible, then what I try to do is when I confess to someone, I try to imagine that that person could be something different than they look like. So I made a combination between doing it like to angels in my mind and to physical people, let's say. And I think of them as those angels in disguise trying to help me to reach the places that they already have achieved. And that's what works for me, I think.
It's very cool, Brian. That's very, very cool. So yeah, you allow yourself to be suspicious of, I think maybe the person that I'm confessing at, it's a special
Something
person.
else.
Yeah, I like that. Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for having come. I hope you do have a great Thanksgiving. If you happen to be in the United States, it's a big day. So yeah, and if you are somewhere else or you don't do anything, just have a great day. It's a great day to have a good day. And thank you so much. So if of course you ever want to support this program, but not only this program, it's like the whole set of translations, please consider donating and supporting Diamond Cutter Classics. You can find the donation at the website. It's very easy, diamondcutterclassics.com. Actually, I should put it in the chat. And the translation program is about to start in about a month, a little bit more, on January 6th. In January 6th, we're gonna start having these classes, and we're gonna see as well, among many other things, Geshe Michael starting his very own commentary on this text that we were using today. Well, we were using a commentary on Gyelsab Je, on the root text of Bodhisattva's Way of Life. Now Geshe Michael is going to write his own commentary on Bodhisattva's Way of Life. So many of these topics, we're going to go through them. So if you want to go deeper, come to the translation class. And next session, we're going to keep going. We're going to learn much more. We're going to go deeper on this power, but also the whole process of purification. So thank you so much. Have a great Thanksgiving. Thank you, Ward. Thank you, Anaili. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, all the translators. Thank you, everybody who comes and participates. Thank you so much, and best wishes.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Best regards to your family, Ward. Bye.